What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 3 and Out YouTube page. I'm John Middlekauff, and we are talking football all day, every day. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's roll, baby. What is going on, everybody? John Middlekauff, 3 and Out podcast. How are we doing? Beautiful day. Thursday night football is here, is live and in charge. And we got Cowboys and Giants. And I'm leaning, just check the line, leaning the G-men. So we will talk about that game. The 49ers have some serious issues. Their star player is in another country trying to fix his body. And this is when the pressure is on the coach and the quarterback. We skipped it last week, and I want to do this every week. My Penthouse and my Outhouse. Best teams in the league, the worst teams in the league. And it's a select few. It's hard to crack the Penthouse. And the Outhouse actually is pretty lonely right now. But there are a tough couple teams that feel pretty good about their spot. A couple little NFL news and notes, things that I saw regarding the doubleheader and why it's probably going to be a thing moving forward. Not on a weekly basis, but we better get used to it. And something with Tom Brady, Netflix, and the Christmas game. And then, of course, this kid named Sluka. I don't know how many people are locked into UNLV running Rebels football, but they're 3-0 for the first time in decades. They got a big game against my Dogs, and their quarterback just quit today. He put out a tweet, said, "I'm out." Said, "You guys haven't paid me." UNLV then put out a statement saying that's not true. We'd come to an agreement before the season, and he came back and asked for more money, but obviously I want to dive into that. We'll have a mailbag out a little bit later as well. And these weeks are flying by. It's crazy when you look and you're like, damn, it's already week 4. We're already deep into conference play in college football. That's why you got to enjoy it while it's here because God, I love football. But before we dive in, I got to tell you about, can you imagine living in the South? Living in the Alabama region or Georgia and going, I want to go to Alabama, Georgia. Kalen DuBois, Kirby Smart, their first matchup. Obviously, historically, Nick Saban had owned Kirby beside one of the biggest, probably the biggest game they ever played, the national championship, where Kirby got the best of him. Listen to Bill O'Brien on with Edelman and his podcast, and obviously they had some injuries in that game, but still. If you want to go to any game, college, pro, I see baseball teams are partying. The Phillies are in. The Padres are in. The Yankees should win the division here soon. And if you want to go to a playoff baseball game, a concert, a comedy show, I got you covered. So here's the thing. You just download a little app. They are the official ticketing app of this podcast. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app today, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. My philosophy on Thursday night games, the longer we go into the season, is if you give me a home team and you're giving them a lot of points, I'm just going to bet on them. And sometimes, late in the season, you get some of these multiple time zone differences, short week in November. It's that is a huge disadvantage for the road team. Now, my initial reaction, look today, pulled up the DraftKings app. We have the Giants +6 at home. Obviously, divisional games just in general can be weird and tightly contested, but you're giving me 6 points at home. The Giants have definitely played better the last 2 weeks. Last week in Cleveland, Daniel Jones was really good. Malik Neighbors is establishing himself as a star, and the Cowboys have some issues. Now, I also like to look at, what was the travel like the week before? Cowboys were at home, so they haven't had to get on a plane until today when they're flying to New York, and the Giants were on the road. So they don't have the comforts of they haven't had to leave, and they're just sitting there at home. They didn't have to travel to Cleveland. I've never made that flight, New York to Cleveland, but I don't think it's 20 minutes. So they had to travel. Now they're coming off a big win. They're feeling good. My initial reaction, like I said, Giants +6. If that thing goes up, I looked early in the week, it was 4.5. These people know something I don't know. Now, the Cowboys are a very public team. This is must-win situation for them in the sense of we went over their schedule yesterday. It's absolutely brutal coming up. They get, after this week, the Steelers, the Lions, at the Niners, at the Falcons, Philly, Houston. I mean, they are playing really good teams. If they fall to 1-3 with a coach that does not have a contract for next season, let's face it, this team gets talked about no matter what. This thing could get weird, and this thing can get weird fast. Now, the one thing with the Cowboys, as we saw last week and 2 weeks ago with the Saints as well, is you can run the ball down their throat. Now, Alvin Kamara, through the first 3 weeks of the season, looks like a rejuvenated guy in his prime. Looks fantastic. Obviously, when you play Lamar and Derrick Henry, I mean, both those two guys are going to be Hall of Famers. So that's a tough matchup. The Giants aren't exactly rolling out Tiki Barber or Saquon Barkley here. Singletary, in my opinion, is like run-of-the-mill starting running back in the NFL. A couple weeks ago, I think he ran for 95 yards against Washington. But what does that really mean? The Cincinnati Bengals were doing whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted in terms of the running game against Washington. Not a very good defense. Last week against Cleveland, better defense, didn't crack 70 yards. On the season, he's averaging like 4.7 a season. So can the Giants really just destroy the Cowboys on the ground like what happened the last 2 weeks? Probably not. I mean, are they going to run for 200 yards? I don't think so. Can they run for 100, though, and slow down the game? I do believe that. Because I think the hard part, when you struggle to cover people, your defensive coordinator can make extreme tweaks with your coverages, right? If you're a man team and your corners are struggling, you can switch to zone, you can cheat safeties, you can add DBs and take linebackers off the field. Like, there are things you can do. In run defense, if your defensive tackles can't hold up the line of scrimmage, if your edge guys aren't great point of attack players in terms of the run game, and your linebacker play is pretty iffy, like, you're going to struggle. I don't care if Dick LeBeau or Jim Johnson is coaching the defense. It's hard to stop the run. Now, luckily for the Cowboys, they're not playing some potent rushing team. So the Cowboys, I think it is fair to say they should win this game. But if they are to lose and you're 1-3, well, the Giants would be 2-2. Eagles have a bunch of injuries, but they've already won 2 games. And Washington won as well. So it's like you would be in last place heading into October, which is not the end of the world, but we just rattled off the schedule. Are the Cowboys, beating all those teams that I just listed? Probably not. It's why it's very difficult to put yourself behind the 8 ball when you have a first place schedule. It's hard. And it's going to be very, very interesting. On the road, I think the key if Dallas is going to win this game, they got to start fast. Because the longer this thing is just ugly, 10-10 at half, and the Giants got life, like Malik Neighbors is proven, man. If Malik Neighbors was a running back, like the talent that we've seen, instead of a wide receiver, he was a running back, I'd pick the Giants to win this game. Hell, I might even, if I'm Dayball, put him in some situations in the backfield. Hell, run him between the tackles. Can you stop this? Now, it's pretty risky. You don't want to get him injured, but this is a pretty good Thursday night game. Not going to lie. Pretty intriguing storylines that 3 weeks ago I might not have been as excited for. But let's face it, a lot of people are throwing this out there. Statistically, like, what the hell is the difference of Daniel Jones and Trevor Lawrence? And everyone acts like Daniel Jones, the worst quarterback we've ever seen, and Trevor Lawrence is, $200 million player. Now, the difference the last couple of weeks, like, Daniel Jones hasn't turned the ball over. If Daniel Jones is not throwing pick sixes and throwing a couple touchdowns a game, and they just keep the game semi-low scoring, I mean, the Giants want no part of games that you have to score 28 to 30 points. If they can keep that bad boy in the teens, if they can keep that bad boy in the low 20s, like, they're going to have a chance. And if that's the score of the game, like, I love the Giants +6. The 49ers, what a weird, obviously, I was thinking about it today. I went for a swim. I've been trying to swim a couple days a week. Good little workout, get really hungry after, feel like you burn a lot of calories. And, a lot of times when you work out, you listen to a podcast or music, even if you're thinking you got stuff in your ear, the one great part about swimming, just you and your thoughts. And I'll just cross my mind, like, let's just say Christian McCaffrey never plays another snap, which I don't think is going to be the case, but at the rate this is going, it's pretty weird. Not very often players in the NFL head to Germany in the middle of a season. But if they would have won that Super Bowl against Kansas City, this year wouldn't be that big a deal. Okay, start fast, some injuries, whatever. It's all gravy. But you lose that Super Bowl, and now it's like, can they get back? This is their window. Now's the time. They got 8 guys making over $15 million. And then you start looking around like, well, let's count the 8 guys. Hargrave's one of those guys, out for the season. Christian McCaffrey, one of those guys, nowhere to be found. Deebo Samuel's one of those guys, already injured, going to miss another game. George Kittle was limited in practice today. I think his status for this week is definitely up in the air. Brandon Ayuk, they gave $30 million a year, $75 million guaranteed. My entire argument the entire time is like, is this player, obviously he's valuable to their team and has been valuable the last couple of years, but is he worth that number to them? And through 3 weeks, he's dropping balls. He's been bad. I mean, he just hasn't been good. Obviously, he's not going to play that bad all season long, but I don't know if they're ever going to get the value given how much they pay him and the way they want to play. But at the end of the day, this operation is really led by 2 people now. One, the star of this show, like when you think the Bills, you think Josh Allen, right? When you think the Indianapolis Colts, you thought Peyton Manning. When you thought the Green Bay Packers, you thought Aaron Rodgers. Hell, New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers. When you think the 49ers, you think Kyle Shanahan. This is why he makes $15, $16 million a year. They got a bunch of injuries, weird shit's going on. Like, you got to rattle off a couple wins now and just kind of right the ship. And he's done it before. Before last year, the previous 2 years, they started really slow. Now they're playing the Patriots. They're a 10-point favorite at home. Obviously, if you win that game, you don't get any credit. But, like, you need to win the next couple games. You get the Patriots at home, huge favorite. Then you get the Cardinals at home. You're going to probably be a 6 or 7 point favorite. You got to win those games. And the conversation around Purdy, like, last week had to be one of Purdy's best games. He looked like a borderline top 5 quarterback in the NFL. He was awesome. I mean, darts inside, darts outside, scrambling around, throws on the move. Just, I get the opponent was, I wouldn't exactly call the 85 Bears, but he was brilliant. He was outstanding. Part of the reason that's such a kick in the you-know-what is because you lose a game when you have the lead and your quarterback is dominating. That's why the defense and the special teams taking so much shit. But I'm sorry, like, this is the reason that we talk so highly about this guy. He makes all this money. He's widely considered, even if we're debating where he lands, you know, on the list of top coaches, everyone has him somewhere between 2 and 5. And if you got one of those guys and you have a good quarterback, like, you rattle off some wins against teams you're better than, even when you have a bunch of injuries. Now, do you have to win the Super Bowl? Are you going to be compromised in a couple months? Yeah, probably, the way this is looking. I mean, the McCaffrey thing, I thought was kind of overblown. And then the moment they put him on injured reserve and it's been feeling worse and now he's in Germany, like, I've kind of come to grips with, if anything he does this season is gravy, I don't really expect to see him. Now, I'm no medical doctor. My take is, hey, if that Achilles is going to rip, you might as well play and rip it as soon as possible because it doesn't feel like something that's avoidable. But listen, that's on him. Maybe he's got some special potion over there that'll strengthen the bad boy. But even, okay, so now you can't win the Super Bowl. But, like, you still should make the playoffs. You still should figure it out. Like, you still should have the culture and the talent even separate from some of these guys, and some of them are going to come back, to rattle off a bunch of wins, to win double-digit games. Why Kyle Shanahan makes all this money. So there is just tangible pressure to me these next 2 weeks. If the 49ers don't win the next 2 games, then I think we can officially say we got a major problem and this team is screwed. But I do expect, because I've seen it before, Kyle Shanahan, Brock Purdy to man the ship, win the next 2 games, and then they got Thursday night on the road at Seattle, which is just shaping up, as long as the Niners take care of business, to be a fantastic Thursday night game. And a difficult spot for the Niners. Short week, on the road, loud place, but you obviously got to win this week against the Patriots, and then you need to win next week against the Arizona Cardinals. I love touchdowns. Tutties, taking it to the house, in for 6. I call them tugs. Whenever you call a touchdown, one thing's for sure. Touchdowns matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. On the ground, in the air, special teams or defense, we do not care how they score them. We want to bet on touchdowns. And DraftKings Sportsbook is delivering. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something as simple like picking a player to score a touchdown or how many touchdowns will be in a game. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. Ready to do a touchdown dance on your own? New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code JOHN, J-O-H-N. That's code JOHN. New customers get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Hey, let's do a little Outhouse Penthouse. I did it 2 weeks ago. I think I forgot after week 2. And this is going to change on a weekly basis. Now, I think it's fair to say they're going to be a consistent theme. The Chiefs are in the outhouse all season long. Like, they bought a place. They leased it out for a year. Like, they're not getting booted. They've earned that right. And they're 3-0. The games could have gone either way, but that's what great teams do. And I think a lot of people are jumping on this bandwagon. People forget because you just look, 6 Super Bowls, 9-10 AFC championship games. Their record spoke for itself. They were in the playoffs every single year, basically with the 1 or 2 seed. The Patriots played in a lot of weird games over the years. They just won a lot of them. That's part of being a great operation and a great team. So to me, the Chiefs are just in the penthouse all season long. They could lose a game. They could lose a couple games in a row. Unless they miss the playoffs, who is betting against this team? The answer is nobody. The other team that has just vaulted their way in, I mean, the Bills look incredible. They really do. And it kind of went viral. Did Josh take a shot at Diggs? Whether he did or did not, what he said is true. We have a bunch of guys, and no one cares about their stats. And I can throw it to anyone on any given play, any given game, and it's not that big a deal. And listen, here's the thing about Diggs, and this is where I will defend him, because I think a lot of people consider him somewhat of a diva. He has been a winning diva. He gets to Minnesota, they were winners. He gets traded to the Bills, they're winners. He's now on the Texans, guess what? They're going to be a playoff team. So yeah, is he high maintenance relative to some players? Probably. But is the guy a winning player? That's not debatable. But now, like, they don't have, quote unquote, a true number one. And they got a lot of guys that look very ready to contribute. And obviously Cooks adds a huge element to their offense as a running back. And Joe Brady is kind of feeling like the LSU version again. And their offense looks sweet. And at the end of the day, their head coach is a defensive guy. So yeah, I would say top to bottom, their roster doesn't look like the 2000 Ravens on defense, but I have a pretty good trust in their operation that they're going to figure it out and be solid. And if you're solid on defense with that good of an offense, you can win the Super Bowl. I do think Minnesota won back-to-back wins. Now, granted, they're at home against the 49ers and the Texans, in which the fashion they did it is like, as of right now, your penthouse is right next to the Chiefs and the Bills. That is extremely impressive. If they go on the road and beat the Packers this week, whether Malik Willis plays or Jordan Love plays, regardless who plays, what an incredible start for O'Connell, for Darnold, for Flores. I think we'd have to start taking this team seriously as like a number one overall seed contender because we know how good they're going to be at home, and their coaching staff is excellent. We talked about it yesterday with the Bears. Like, no one trusts their coaching staff. This is not these other sports where you can overcome that with talent. In football, your coaches are so important because so many games are going to be within 5-6 points in the fourth quarter. Can I outcoach you? Can I out-scheme you? Can I call the right plays? Can I put my best players in the best positions to have success? And I think it's pretty evident right now that the Vikings can. Listen, I can't. You're 3-0. And if I'm going to put the Chiefs in there, now they've done a lot more this style and have it work than the Steelers. If the Steelers are playing the Bills or the Chiefs in a playoff game, I would not pick them. But like they're clearly comfortable playing in these really weird, ugly games. They have no problem doing it. And they could play their way to 12, 13 wins as long as their defensive players stay healthy. And I already saw Highsmith is injured. So if they can keep the core of their defense on the field, like they got a chance to win 12 plus games. I'll be the first to admit that as someone that bet against them this season. And as long as Fields doesn't turn the ball over, makes a couple occasional explosive plays down the field to Pickens with his legs, they're going to be a problem. Now, do you trust that style and that specific player in a playoff game? Depending on who they're playing, you would bet against them more than likely. But as of through 3 weeks, props to them. It's why Tomlin is a badass. People think I'm a Tomlin hater. I just thought last year was like his Andy Reid Chiefs time, like time for a divorce. And I'll give them credit. They punted on all their quarterbacks and they got Fields in there. And whether Russell Wilson, it's hard. I saw a headline today. I was like, if you're Russell Wilson, you don't want to look like you've just gotten Wally pipped and you're ready to go and they're going to keep rolling the field. So it's like, is he hurt to the point where he couldn't play? Is he like back? Is he their backup going into games? It's just a situation that I could see them manipulating a little bit through, just through the injury report. And the Steelers, you do whatever. It doesn't matter to you as long as you got Fields ripping and roaring. But if Fields were to get injured, who goes into the game? Is Russell ready? Is he not? I don't know the answer to that. But so that's my squad right there. Because the Chiefs actually have a lower point differential than the Steelers. I mean, the Vikings and the Bills are destroying people. The Bills, their point differential through 3 games is 64 points. That's pretty impressive. Obviously, it helps when you beat a team 47-10, but the Vikings 55. The Outhouse is pretty ugly. I mean, this is the slums. This is a house you couldn't give away. Homeless people might turn down a key to this pad. First, the Titans. I actually don't think they're terrible, but when you roll out Will Levis, which the GM Rand Carthen clearly liked, he drafted him. He supported him. I think Brian Callahan, you say what you got to say to get a job. But when you have 8 turnovers through 3 games, 5 interceptions, I can't function with you. That was the thing with Andy Dalton to Bryce Young. It's like, listen, all these former players and people on TV are like, this is BS. You got to give them time. You got to let them. Well, it's like, guys, if we can't run basic plays, basic pass plays, and have them completed, I'm talking about balls in the flat, a basic out route. It's one thing that we're talking go routes and double passes and double moves and deep posts. Okay. Those are lower percentage throws. Caleb's missing some of those. But like when you can't hit the layups, we can't function. And that's the thing with Will Levis. Like he hits some sexy plays and you can watch him on a given drive. You're like, God, Will Levis is not terrible. And then he'll just turn the ball over. He's averaging right now more than 2 turnovers a game. You cannot function like that. I don't care how well your defense has played, and it hasn't been that bad, but Will Levis has, I think you could argue, because Bryce Young was benched, is currently the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. I think the team that is just pretty cemented in the outhouse right now, given the hype, given how many people, I keep hearing people say this, is like last year when they were 8-3, they were in the mix for the number 1 overall seed. And then they've just lost basically every game since. And that game on Monday, playing in Buffalo is difficult. And when you get down in that situation, it can snowball on you. But to lose 47-10, this is not a 1AA team against an SEC team. This is not one of those situations like you have a $200 million quarterback. You have a first-round running back, a first-round wide receiver. Christian Kirk's been very productive. You got multiple first-rounders on defense. Like, you got players that a lot of other teams would want. And you're getting curb-stomped, drug through the mud in front of, we'll get into this in a minute, 19 million people. So I think the Jags are in a really, really bad spot. And Doug had some comments today, like he's handling adversity well. He knows it's been on him. All that stuff's great, but you can say whatever you want. That was pretty gutless. And when your quarterback is playing as poorly as he is, and let's face it, like he's super rich and he'll never have to worry about money the rest of his life. But that has to weigh on you a little bit if you're a human being. Like, I've been given all this money. I was told, like, I'm the savior of the franchise. And once you start playing bad, it can snowball. And I think there's a chance it could get even worse. So my penthouse: Chiefs, Bills, Steelers, and the Vikings. And my outhouse is strongly held by the two 0-3 teams, Titans and Jags. I know the Bengals are 0-3 too, but I think they're in a different level than these two teams. Couple quick things on the NFL. I don't like the doubleheader. Like, I just like watching one game on Thursday night, on Sunday night, and on Monday night. I think it's a pretty special occasion for the team, for the players. I know the players and coaches sometimes don't like, Monday night. It throws off your week. You got to wait around all day. But just in terms of knowing it's a bright light game, knowing that everyone in the country, everyone in your sport, they're all watching you play. I do think it's diminished a little bit in its importance when there are two games going on simultaneously. I mean, for 2 hours on Monday, they both were being played. There was a strong overlap. But I saw the numbers today that it peaked between the two games at 19 million people. And at one point in time toward the end, when it was just one game, it was like 15 million people. And early on, it was like 13 million people. This is all based on how many people view your stuff. And the NFL loves having huge ratings. And they're in bed with these TV partners. So if the TV partners like this, it's not only not going to stop, they're going to add to it, which sucks, which is not something I want. But I'm also not naive to the way the world works. This is all about money. And the way these people make their money is by more people watching. So if you're ESPN, I would imagine you're going to push for more of this. And I guess the one bright side is when you give two games, it does leave the option if one's really bad, as was the Bills-Jags game, an absolute blowout. We're getting two games again this week. I didn't write down the other game, but I know one of them's Titans-Dolphins. I mean, that's a terrible game. So it's Titans-Dolphins, and let me just pull up the other game schedule. It's Titans-Dolphins in Seattle-Detroit, which is an excellent game. But I think we'd all be fine with if it was just Seattle-Detroit. But that's just not the world we live in. The other story that I saw was Netflix, who needs broadcasters for these Christmas games, right? They're not just going to get broadcasters from scratch. They're going to attempt to hire people from other networks. Because Christmas this year, I think, is on a Tuesday or Wednesday. So you could hire people that are working that following Sunday pretty easily if they agree to it. Now, the story was that Netflix wanted Burkhart and Brady to call one of the games. And the headline was Fox declined. And my first thought was, if you're Tom, I didn't retire from football to work on Christmas. Now, if I was Fox, I'd want these guys on Netflix. I don't see how it hurts. It would just be good. Tom Brady, everyone's at home. But to me, my educated guess here is Tom wants no part of this game. Not because, like, it's been rough, it's been struggle, it's been, people have been making fun of him that he's not any good. It's like, no, I retired from football. For my entire career, even if we didn't play on Wednesday or Thursday during the week, I still had to go into my Christmas was not like normal people Christmases. I don't want to work. And I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to either. But they got denied. The last thing I want to hit on is this story out of UNLV. That Barry Odom, former Missouri coach, has UNLV 3-0 for the first time in like 40 years. They've only had like 2 winning seasons in the last 25 years. I mean, this is a bad football program. And they have a massive game this week for the Mountain West against Fresno State. It's a huge swing game that could determine, who's in the conference championship game. My Dogs, led by Tim Skipper, rolling into Vegas. And this morning, their starting quarterback, Matt Sluka, who's a former Holy Cross quarterback, transferred in this year, said, I'm out. I'm redshirting. You guys screwed me. I'm no longer going to play for you. Now, before we dive into this individual situation, obviously there were takes flying left and right. Everyone had an opinion. And I was like, I'm going to wait to tweet something before what side is true. Who knows? But it was like, is this the start of something? Get ready for more of this. Let's not forget, we're talking UNLV football. If Alabama, LSU, Ohio State, I'd say any top 20-ish program who was 3-0 and their quarterback wanted a little more money, they would take care of it. This is not a situation. I'm not saying it's never going to happen, because it will one day. I'm talking a top player, mad about what he's getting paid, and just quitting for a marquee brand. It's like, wait, Michigan just lost their starting linebacker because he wanted more money and he just quit? It will happen. But I do think at quarterback, if this happened at a premium program who is playing well, it would get figured out, and it would get figured out fast. I feel pretty confident on that. Now, clearly, for most of us, anyone that's in a job that's based on a contract, like what I do, I'm in a contract and a partnership with Colin and the Volume. It's very well laid out. Obviously, if you are an at-will employee and you make 50 grand, 200 grand, whatever, there are times when we need to revisit this. This is not working out. Human nature. Welcome to real life. Now, in sports, when you are under contract and you make whatever you make, $1 million, $5 million, $50 million, that money's the money. Now, when the season ends, you can negotiate, but there's not much negotiating unless there's going to be a big contract extension during the season. So if you're going to get a raise, you're going to get a contract extension. In a situation like this, which is kind of a one-off, a little more complicated. Now, let's just use the scenario in which he was promised, because there are a couple stories out there. He put out the story that he was promised, or well reported, which clearly coming from his camp, $100,000, and he has yet to receive any of it. I think it's very fair that any of our lives, I bet we got a lot of people in sales that listen to me. If you do a deal with someone for $100,000, your company, your business, whatever, the company you represent, I provide Y and you provide X, which is 100 grand. The moment they don't provide the 100 grand or the payments toward that 100 grand, you have a problem. Basic business. Welcome to the real world. The longer you live, I'm promising you, if we got some people that are young and in college and high school that listen to this, you will experience that stuff. I have. A lot of people listening have as well. And then usually the deal ends. The partnership ends. You stop providing whatever you promised because they're not paying. Welcome to life. So if that's the case, have no problem with him being mad. If he committed to a deal and they have provided the money, which they claim is true, and that he went back to them and wanted a raise because he had beat Houston, and who's the other team he beat? He beat Houston and Kansas. So he's feeling himself. My 100 grand, let's just pick a number. I want 200 more. And they go, listen, one, this ain't Oregon or USC. It might be a city full of money, but they ain't giving it to us here at UNLV football. We can't provide that. Like, I understand where they're coming from. It's like, we don't have the capability to even find this right now. So if that's the case, like, I understand both sides, whatever way the situation actually played out. Right now, we don't know because there are two stories that are completely opposite. But I'm also not that shocked, because when I was at Fresno State, I think we had one transfer on the team, and it was a guy that had played at Oregon and transferred. But back then, this was in the 2000s. If you transferred from another Division I school, so I'm at Oregon and I transferred to Fresno State, I had to sit out a year. So if I had played as a true freshman and I transfer the next year, I have to blow my redshirt year. If I've already redshirted, that year just counts as if I played, even though I'm not allowed to play. So most people, the most anyone transferred was basically one time. Well, now all these guys are mercenaries. So this guy comes from Holy Cross. I don't pretend to know anything about them. I don't follow UNLV football. But he was clearly a heralded player at Holy Cross in the division there. He was the player of the year in their conference. So he's a good player. Leads the team, obviously, passing statistics. Also was their leading rusher. Good athlete. This notion I've heard is like, how could he let down his teammates? Well, when I was at Fresno State, and before the transfer portal, anyone listening to me that played college football, for the most part, you were with the same crew of guys for 4 or 5 years. They weren't just your teammates. They're now, as you get older, your lifelong friends. They're people you spent every waking moment with. Off-season workouts, early morning workouts, off-season practice, training camp, the season. You have years of equity with them. So when you talk about like your close friends, like what you would be willing to do for your close friends, you would be willing to do more for them than someone you've known for 6 months. Even if you're a great guy, shirt off your back type person. This notion that he just let down his teammates, he fucking showed up 6 months ago. I mean, how many close friends does this guy probably have on the team? My guess would be under 5. I wonder if this plays out this way because he got to college football in 2000. If he had been on UNLV's team his entire career, and the bulk of their core guys he has known for several years, it would probably be, just as a human being, more difficult. But I'm not surprised that this happened at all. His loyalty to the team, the coaches, is not anywhere near what it used to be before transfer portal. And trust me, I know a lot of old school people around college football. I've gotten a lot of texts. I'm not shocked at all. And at the end of the day, I don't care that it's UNLV, and I'm glad. I think this would be a nice win for the Dogs. But how can anyone be shocked? These guys, they don't know these people that well. They simply do not. If he had been a 3-year starter, it's like years of time with the 3 offensive linemen, his wide receiver, all the 5 guys that are still there on defense, these guys would be people that will be at his wedding. He'll be at their weddings. Like, one of them will probably be the godfather to his children. That ain't the case anymore in college football. These guys are moving around left and right. So I just think the overreaction to like, this is what? A guy that showed up 6 months ago has a discrepancy with the school on how much he's worth, or they didn't pay him, or he should be paid now. Quit. Not shocking at all.